Welcome to episode 13 of Box Turtle Bites. I'm Jason. He's TJ. TJ, what are we going to do tonight?
We're going to be looking at some agentic coding and another IDE, but it's really based around agentic coding.
Yeah, same concept. So, yeah, there's a lot of different tools out there right now. So we're going to play around with. We're going to start off with one, and then we'll kind of see how the time goes and play around with whatever we have time to do. So, yeah. So you have a little bit of a life update, actually, though. Like the reason why we haven't been here for the last couple times.
Yes, I actually took time off this time too.
Yeah.
Just had my fourth.
Congratulations.
Came very quickly
Yes.
in a bad position, so was unfortunately an emergency, but thank goodness,
okay.
yeah, everything worked out just fine, and everyone's doing great now. And I happen to have time tonight to explore some agentic coding.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump to it. So we're going to play around with, I'll share for a little bit here, and then I think you've got more stuff going. So I'm just going to show what we're doing. We're going to play around with OpenCode, which is an open source agentic CLI tool. Is it more than just a CLI?
Nope, just CLI. Okay. It's very similar to Claude Code.
Yeah.
And the only reason I don't think it's worthwhile to show Claude Code is if you are going to use Claude Code, you probably already have used it and probably have the max license.
Yeah.
It's highly suggested to at least have the $100 a month one, just based upon how many calls it makes and whatnot. But for us folks that don't have $200 a month,
right,
we're going to show you some alternatives that you can use.
Yeah, so this one's really interesting. I think one of the most interesting things about it is the different models you can use. So I'm logged in here. Do you have is yours already logged in? If not, I can kind of bail out on this one. But
yeah, mine's logged in. I was running it against our.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I'm gonna exit out of here real quick and see. Now it comes right back in. When you go to the models, oops. So I'm already in Copilot. I'm logged in as Copilot. So you're seeing the different Copilot models it can use. What's interesting is this thing will hook up to like just about everything. Like it had Anthropic, it had Bedrock, it had
Google. It even has Copilot. Local.
Yeah.
It can use anything Grok, Llama,
XAI, yeah, Llama, all those. So
Llama CPP, .cpp. That's the major inference.
Yeah. So, which is kind of cool, right? I mean, like, I think one of the limitations of a lot of these tools is that they tend to target a pretty tight audience. Even Copilot, which is really nice in that you've got different model options, and Bedrock's got different model options, but they're still fairly limited. This is definitely the one that had the most from what I've seen, like that it's able to pull in Grok and some of its other ones.
Oh yeah, so, even Grok. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
XAI was in there. I think it had well, what was the big one you were talking about earlier today that made the big splash?
Oh, Kimi K2.
No, not. I don't know if that one's in the older one. Wow.
Oh, DeepSeek.
DeepSeek. Yeah, I think that was in there too. So a lot of different options, which is actually really kind of cool. And yeah, so let's just why don't we share your screen for a bit because you got some actual stuff on yours and
sure. So basically the same thing that you were just looking at. I've also logged into my GitHub, and so I have it set to 4.1 right now, just because that's the. If you aren't aware, GitHub Copilot has changed the way that they do pricing and the way that their models are charged. 4.1 is one that is free unlimited use with the subscription. So basically it's open in the terminal and you can do basically your slash command. We don't need the slash editor because we're in an editor. And then I already ran a init. What a init does is it basically does what they call agentic search. And so it's going to open all of the files, grep them, and basically read them, and then can create this agent markdown. And you can actually change this to whatever you want. But it's just a nice little feature to kind of look for and kind of give whatever rules that you have. It will also pull in any Cursor Copilot rules that you have as well, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of nice in general. I think I've seen, I'm not think I know. Copilot has like something where you can kind of give it, I can't remember what they call it, but where you can give it some kind of a markdown file. It kind of guides it in some ways. It looks like what this is doing is building one of those for you. So if you're kind of scanning your code base, looking it over, summarizing, and figuring out like what parts of it are things that you do normally, right? Like this is kind of taking from all of our various code episodes that we have, and created that file so that like if you think about this like in terms of like your organization or wherever you're working, like you've got some kind of way you write code, right? Like you're going to do it the same every time, and so this is kind of like the code style guidelines, for example. This is like, okay, this is how we do these things, and that way when you do the next one, it's going to hopefully, and I say hopefully because they'll go off the rails every once in a while, definitely see that happen, but they're going to follow up relatively closely, so it's kind of a nice way to get it to continue to do things in the same pattern that you're used to, so that your code doesn't start looking like different things every time you open it.
Yep, exactly. And so one of the things I thought would be interesting, so usually when we do an episode, we create the folder, we go through and bring in whatever files that we need or whatever.
Yep.
And so I thought maybe it would be nice to just ask it to do it for us. And so we'll say something along the lines of, for our next episode, which would be 13 or 12. Is this 12?
This is 13. So next one will be 14, but we'll probably do that one on 15 because we're going to have special guests in our next episode.
Okay, so we need an episode 15 folder and all file content set up for an example of a DynamoDB table with 100 records. It can just be users. Also include a Lambda to get those records so that we can test different runtimes. This one should follow the current directory and rules of this repo and be closely mirroring of episode 8. And so it's going to go ahead and basically create, it's like what it's going to go do. And we're basically watching it think and do those things. So you can see it.
Yeah, I was going to say, open it up. It looked like it created a checklist. Did it actually write that checklist into Markdown?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No. But it's basically going to town right now, copying what's there and kind of adjusting it for what I told it.
So what I think is really kind of interesting about this is one of the things you'll appreciate this, because this is one of those things that I always like stop doing these things. Everyone always wants like some kind of automation to create a new repo, right? Like, oh, we're gonna do the new service and we need to have all this templates and stuff in place. And I'm like, templates are a waste of time, because the moment you build a template, they're out of date, and you go to use the new template and you have to do all these updates to it anyways, and they're a pain in the butt to update and waste of time to update. This is actually kind of interesting because effectively you can be like, hey, don't need a template, use the latest and greatest thing that we did and build it off of that.
Very interesting. What's the YAML file for?
It's creating an API gateway. So that's
oh, nice. So it created the
schema, API schema.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and created a, well, that's just wrong. That's a Node.js function right now.
Well, but it's creating a
Oh,
custom.
now
resource.
it's there. It is. Okay. This is bad. Don't do this.
What?
All right. I have done this and lost hours upon hours of my life because if you do not send back the correct thing,
That's not true. If you use this if you use their custom resource handler,
right?
it wraps it with its own function.
Yes, that's the safe way of doing it.
That's what
This is the not safe way
No,
of
I
doing it.
think this is the L2 construct. I think this is the safe way.
No, this is using the function.
No, but that's right. It's wrapping it like that. That custom resource is going to create another Lambda function that's going to call your function.
I thought that
If you do the CFN one,
I thought the service token had to be the provider.
Oh, well, there's
no provider here.
You're right. I feel like that's actually going to create the problem.
Yes, it's going to be you want a provider.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm pretty sure you're right about that. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Yeah. Yep.
And this is the correct way of doing it. And if you do it that other way, you are going to wait 6 hours for CloudFormation to clear that resource.
It used to be 24 hours.
That's true.
So it is better than it used to be. They actually have a dev mode now too that you can do where it'll fail faster, I think. But yeah, you're right. It's funny that it did it wrong. So
yeah, that one's interesting. Did not include path, even though it used it.
No, path is built in with Node.
I thought you had to still include it for it to get picked up by.
I think so.
Well, maybe they have something wrong with the TS config then.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like I don't remember ever having to add path. I just always import it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not too bad though. I mean, in all reality, it got relatively close.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's better than like the template model where, you're having to go through and like update that template all the time. At least this way, it's relatively close. I wonder if do like an npm
Fix any lint or errors, please.
Did you do an npm install?
I don't know. It can do it. Why do I got to?
I mean, yeah, we were talking a little bit before. I've been using some Copilot in VS Code, and just because I got tired of constantly telling it okay every time it wanted to do something, I just temporarily have granted it permission to do whatever it wants, which is dangerous, I know, but it's not a permanent decision. So, here in the trash.
How did I get out?
Oh, because you created the one before and.
I don't even know where the hell I am.
Just open up a new one. Kill that one.
There we go.
There you go.
Wait. Oh, it ran all kinds of shit. Look, it built it.
BTS. Yeah. So that's actually interesting because that means it doesn't have like a dist out.
Yeah, it didn't specify dist, but sure as shit, it fixed its errors.
Well, that's good. So this is actually one of the things that I've found, and I don't know what your experience has been, but I've found one of the things that I'm finding the most use for these agents is fixing stuff. Like when I make a mistake like that, like, hey, go fix these errors. Especially when you're dealing like with some of the weirdness that you'll run into with like just mocks and not even just the mocks, but like the configuration and the TS config stuff. Man, it is so much better at figuring that stuff out than I am, and so much faster, and primarily a heck of a lot less frustrating. How much time I spend like trying to fix stuff and just getting frustrated by it.
It's interesting. It's no longer showing me what it's
doing. Yeah, that is interesting. I guess
one other thing is compact.
Yep.
That'll like basically look through the entirety of your session and then create basically a summarization so you can keep going.
Do you know, so in Copilot, and VS Code, every once in a while I'll be like, do you want to keep iterating? Do you think that's what it's doing behind the scenes, just summarizing?
Probably. I mean, it has to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would lose all the context.
Right.
Not too bad. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think, if I was looking at it and trying to compare it to just the agent mode on Copilot, I don't know that it's doing
Anything much better. Yeah.
anything like extraordinarily better. I mean, I think some of it does come down to like what model you're using. And so
Yeah. I think that's what, I mean, again, like, I think that's where this particular tool, I would say that's its biggest strength, is that it does have these different models.
yeah, the flexibility of the
Right.
tool is definitely nice.
Yeah.
And if you can't get Copilot, if that's out of your range, you can always run something off of LM Studio or
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think they even in their docs even said that they support local agents.
Yeah.
So, which
yeah, and that's just LM Studio. I
yeah.
can show it real quick, but I have to change the screen share.
So, question for you on that, for those of us who may be in the market to buy a new computer because they're just getting old. What would you recommend for your kind of minimum resources for a computer if you want to be able to run something like LM Studio or some of these LMs?
I mean, if you're going on Mac, anything 32 and above. I mean, the more the better, obviously, because Mac's unique in the fact that it's like a shared pool.
Right.
And LM Studio supports hardware, Mac hardware, and the Apple chips. If you're in the PC space, you gotta have a graphics card, and you're gonna want something.
I'm not gonna go in the PC space. So.
Yeah, so I mean, 32 will get you by because what they're doing is they're shrinking them. Like you're actually running a GGUF version of it, and they've shown that like. Sure, you lose about 10% of the intelligence of the model, but in the general cases, it's not that big of a deal. But it's another one of those, and hopefully, I haven't updated this in a while, but you can basically pull any model off of Hugging Face. And so like a lot of the open source models, when I'm like trying to test them, I'll pull them off that and then I was checking out DeepSeek R1 that was distilled with Qwen for tool calling, basically. And it's more than just testing it with the chat. Like the chat's nice,
right?
But you can put it into basically developer mode, and you can basically have it serving on a port that you define, and it runs using the OpenAI API spec, and even that, and most likely why it's asking me to update, even OpenAI now supports MCP. That was one of the big downfalls of LM Studio, was it didn't support MCP, and so you had to do traditional function call. You could still do function calls, it was just different.
Yeah,
wasn't as fast. But pretty cool way of running something locally, and it doesn't cost you anything but the electricity to power your machine. It's definitely something that I suggest to folks for testing out things, because it can get expensive.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to use some of the newer models, like it's crazy expensive. And I mean, obviously, if you're trying to do something specific to those models, yeah, you're gonna have to. But
I wonder if this will.
If you want to do something smaller, how big do they get? Like, was it 8 gigs? That's not.
This one's an 8 gig one.
Yeah,
they're all quantized down in size, and there's many of them.
Yeah.
So, Qwen 3 is a pretty popular one, right? And so we can look at that one.
17 gig.
Yeah, they changed some of this. So there's usually a bunch of these. Oh, here we go. So like you can see that you can pick one that is,
Mm-hmm.
17 gig or the full.
Yeah.
These are all the different, basically quantized versions of it.
Like
And there's like, and they're all different.
Yep.
The DeepSeek R1 that's distilled with Llama, you can get down to a real small,
Yeah.
like 2 gig.
Yep.
It's not going to
It's
be
not gonna be as good.
O3 thinking and all that kind of good jazz, but
Yep.
it's still like I have this running DeepSeek right now, and so I can talk to it and it'll tell you how many tokens per second you're getting and all kinds of crazy stuff. And again, I'm on an old version.
Right.
But yeah, definitely another alternative from like the open source perspective, because I feel like we have shown a lot of closed source stuff lately.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because like as kind of a newish thing, right? The open source community, there's not a lot of options, right? There's Hugging Face, as you mentioned, things off of that. Let's see how it does. The good old question.
Well, this is what's interesting is like it's the thinking.
Yeah.
And so like you can even get access, like open source has come a long way.
Agreed. Well, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, right, it's like early on there wasn't an open source option, right? Like at all. And then obviously like they saw it and like, okay, well, let's do this. The community comes up. Doesn't take them long to catch up, and then frankly, quite often surpass the rest of them after some period of time. But
yep. And Kimi 2 Instruct is now challenging Claude Code and all the agentic models because they came out with just a banger that is very, very good at tool calling. So I'm very interested to see that model when it starts to get put onto some of this stuff. I don't think there's no way my old version is going to be able to find it, but it's definitely something that is shaking up the scene a little bit. And to be quite frank, there's like 2 schools of thought when it comes to AI and machine learning. There's the symbolic AI, and then what they've been doing currently with all of the scaling, and they're starting to say that they need the symbolic AI portion, and they've actually accidentally proven it by giving it the Python tool bolt-on, because that's an interpreter, it's algorithmic, and it's got symbolic nature to it. And so they're saying that the current path that they're going, unless they start to bring in more of that symbolic, AI and some grounding that are like interpreters and stuff like that, that they won't go any farther than they have, and that we're starting to see
kind of
where the diminishing return is starting to happen. Anyways, off my soapbox. I guess like the next thing we can kind of look at is I was really interested to see that AWS kind of jumped into the fold. Do you have your Kira up?
Yeah, I've got it up. Don't really have anything in it right now, so let's so this is actually I actually was able to get an early look at this. So I've got some thoughts, but we'll kind of play around with it. Let's see. Let's open. As one of the things that I first bothered me about it was just like how this even worked, because I wanted to start a new project, and I'm like, how do I start a new project? It's funny because like realistically, I've nothing to complain about. It's the way VS Code works, right? If you just open a folder, right? Like that's effectively how it works. But I've been playing, like I said, I've been playing with VS Code and Copilot. And Copilot now, if you open VS Code, it has like a start a new project with Copilot, and it like prompts you, and then it goes through the steps. And it ultimately, what it does is it like asks you to pick a folder, an empty folder, and then it opens again, and it says, "Now, do you want to continue?" And it goes on its merry way. So, it's one of those like small complaints. I'm like, how do I get started? Just open a folder, you dummy. But what's interesting about Kiro is they took a kind of different model, right? And so you'll see here, this is the kind of Kiro window, and they got the spec section. They've got hooks, which are actually kind of interesting. Some agent steering stuff, which is not unique, and then MCP stuff. But the spec is really what's their kind of their big thing. And the idea with it is that you effectively build out the spec of like what it is you're trying to build, and then it'll put together a design document, and then it'll create tasks, and effectively it'll have a task, and these are just marked down, and it'll create this task document that's like, all right, I'm going to go do the next thing, and go do the next thing, and do the next thing. And so it actually becomes kind of a different way to think about building apps. One of the problems that I have with the concept is it feels a lot like waterfall.
Mm.
And it's actually one of the problems I've had trying to get myself into using Copilot and any of the other tools, is that I feel like I have to be so far ahead. And I've gotten to where I don't anymore, but I've always felt like, what do I tell it? And when it's the spec model is really designed like to have this kind of upfront plan. Now you can modify the spec afterwards. It's not like you can't iterate on the spec. You absolutely can. But just like I don't have in my head this like thing that I can explain to it. And so like when it starts doing things, like it's like, okay, you know, let's just say they're going to do a simple REST API. It's going to do a task list, right? And so you might like, I can even
have it do episode 15 with .NET.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see. I can't even remember that. Let's, yeah, that's right. Spec.
Or well, I guess it would be 15B or something like that.
Yeah. All right. We'll just let that go for a little bit. What it'll do is it'll create the spec, and then it'll ask you.
It makes a requirements document,
right?
Huh?
Exactly.
Wow.
And that requirements document is the spec, and it'll ask you to review the spec. And then when that's done, it'll say, okay, I'm going to go now do a design. And so I'm just going to kind of let it go, but you'll see, you know, some of the requirements that it has. It puts some acceptance criteria in here. Just a list of things that it thinks based on the prompt that I gave it that makes sense.
Nice.
All right. And so now it says move to design phase. So I'm going to click move to design phase. And ultimately, you know, if I had modifications, I could have done it there. So now it's going to create a design document.
Interesting.
And you'll see here, eventually it'll start filling out some things around the design. And then ultimately a task document. And it's kind of an interesting, again, it's an interesting model because it's designed really largely for let it do the work for you, right? It's not as much, let's work together on this or help me out when I'm stuck or whatever. It's more of a, you kind of tell it what you want and it kind of does it for you. It has its set of bugs. You know, it's in preview still, so you gotta, you know, take it with for what it is there. It has model options, right? So it's using Cloud Sonnet 4 here. You can switch it. Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty limited right now, but they do plan on opening that up. You know, I mean, it does an okay job on some things, not as good on others. It has some of the same problems you get with other things, but you'll see it's creating. You know, here's the folder structure it's going to do. some basic information. It's like, okay, yeah, this all looks relatively good to me. Even it's got error handling, all that stuff. Great. Okay, now move to the implementation phase. And so here is going to create this task list. And ultimately what this will be is it would be effectively, think of them almost like user stories or cards on a Kanban board or in Jira or whatever, like almost that level of kind of things. Like, and then it's just like, okay, you just tell it, go do the next thing.
And this is the spec version, right?
This is the spec version. Yeah.
Yeah. That's still pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to say, yeah, it looks good.
I like how it even calls out what requirements it's for.
Right. Sure. Looks good. Great. I'm going to accept it. All right. So what's interesting now is, okay, so now it's got all these different, inside the task list, it's got these different tasks that it can work on. And so you can just be like, all right, start this task. And it'll just start doing things.
That's pretty cool.
So it is really cool. I think one of the things that I found most interesting was this agent hooks. I'm starting to see where like some of the triggers can really crush you. But you can have it do some LLM things when certain events happen. And I would say that the like update my documentation. They got some built-in ones here, optimize my code, language localization. But if you click this, it's basically just a prompt.
Yep.
And so it's got, because it's doing something else, it'll only let you do one at a time, which I'm not sure if that's a limitation of the version we're on or what, but it definitely does this all the time. But in any case, it'll ultimately, what it'll do is it'll create a hook that, again, it's going to basically looking for changes to these different files, and it's going to update the documentation based on whenever those change. The issue that I have with these in particular is it's way overkill. I don't need to update my documentation every time I change a file because I'm working on something. It's going to be 10 files later and 50 saves before I'm done. Especially because I have it set to auto save whenever I change focus. And so like, it's going to be saving all the time, and it's going to be running the LLM all the time to update documentation for something that's not even done yet. So
interesting. Yeah, depending
on
your model too, that would hurt.
Right. Now, but again, like that's the event that I chose. I think you can, I don't know what all options you can do, but like you could imagine doing like, hey, whenever I create a pull request, go do these things. And that's where I think it would be really kind of cool. It's kind of the ability to kind of, I don't know, pre-check it before you actually push some code, make sure that it's meeting, updating your documentation, they talked about, like if you've got a set of requirements around how you write your code, testing code coverage, whatever you want to do, you could put that into an agent hook that made sure that it analyzed it, did whatever updates, let you look at things, whatever, and ultimately determine whether or not it's ready to go, push whatever changes. And so it is kind of cool. This is one where I think I see the other ones probably coming in and doing this.
Yep, I can definitely see it.
Yeah. So let's kind of see what this thing's doing, because it's
click the follow.
Oh, well, I can still do that. I haven't actually done it yet. I forgot.
Oh, waiting on your input.
Yeah.
Oh, it's trying to build.
Yeah. It's going to fail because I haven't installed .NET. Yeah. So that's interesting. But where was the follow? Did I clear it?
Right there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. So, but interestingly, it's got tests, it's got a function code, it's using Lambda, serial, like it's using kind of the best things that you would expect out of something like this. Let's accept it for now. So, I mean, it's ultimately it's pretty cool. I'm curious what it did. It did CDK. So it did. This is interesting because .NET does have CDK, but
looks like it went with
TypeScript.
TypeScript on that.
Yeah, which is interesting. I've wondered, like, I played around with CloudFormation way back when it first came out, when you and I worked together at Balance Innovations, and it was not ready for prime time. It was really just the L1 constructs, right?
Mhm.
And so like doing in basically it allowed you to do it in .NET instead of YAML or JSON, which great. But I've wondered to myself, like, if I were to do that in a VS Code or in a .NET project, would I use .NET? I've done it. It's a little weird. It's not as nice as the TypeScript stuff is. So
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know. Like, this may not be the wrong choice.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, overall, I would say Hero. It's interesting. I think it's got, like I said, I think it's got some strengths. It's got some things that I liked about it. You and I were talking a little bit earlier, just briefly, but to me, I think this is a little bit of a race to the bottom, or ultimately, like, all these IDE people, especially because they're all going to have to be built on top of VS Code, are going to be at some point in time they're going to be chasing Copilot. Like, Copilot may even be behind, but they'll catch up, and then they will have control of the entire ecosystem. And I just don't know how these other people are going to keep up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough. Even I was surprised that Amazon even forked it, because they're all forks, right?
Right, exactly.
And
It's a fork of VS Code. Now, to be fair, they've been working on this for a while, so my understanding is it's been over a year.
yeah, and I mean, they have a better shot
Right.
of staying alive from it all.
Yeah.
I think that what a lot of people don't realize is just how expensive this stuff costs, and
Yep.
how many VC dollars are propping up
Exactly.
a lot of these use cases. And I think we saw it with Cursor when they had to start changing their pricing model.
Right. And I think that's what I'm most interested. Like Hero, again, like you said, Amazon's backing it. It's going to have a little more legs than a Cursor or Windsurf. I can't remember.
Yeah, Windsurf.
Windsurf, yeah. It's not, and there's others. I think those ones are going to struggle.
That fell through.
Did it fall? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, OpenAI ended up
it, right?
not getting it, and then Google, I think, basically acqui-hired like a majority of their C-suite away, and then there was some other fallout afterwards. Not sure how it all ended up, but I think that's why I've started to explore the open source a lot more, and why I'm trying to show, and why I thought it would be a good idea to show some of these open source alternatives of like how to run this stuff and still get that value that you want out of it without just getting blasted with, huge bills. Cause like, if you're there's always going to be the people that are chasing like the O3s and the Claude opuses of the world, but in the grand scheme of things, to do documentation, you can use an open source model for that.
And I think even a lot of the coding stuff, like, don't get me wrong, these agents, they get things wrong a lot, right, when you're writing code. But that said, they can hugely accelerate you. And I think even some of the older models, the models that aren't as good, will accelerate you a lot, especially when they have something to look at that's like your code base and be like, hey, I'm wanting to make changes to this code base. It's going to be a lot better at doing that. Than you don't necessarily need the advanced models to get all that stuff in, right? So I think you're right. I think you'll be able to do a lot without some of those kind of higher end tools. And I think, at the end of the day, like, I just don't see how they're going to be able to stay afloat at the price points that it's going to start costing, unless those price points start really dropping. If we start getting like some, massive drop in the cost of compute, then maybe there's a chance.
Yep. Oh, I'm trying to think of what other things can we kind of explore.
What other open source things are there out there?
I mean, there's quite a bit. I think like the big one. I mean, the main two huge ones right now, I think that are the most beneficial for people is that Open Code and LM Studio.
Yeah.
LM Studio is basically that's open source free. What I was showing, it's built on top of llama.cpp. They just put a nice Electron app
Yeah.
around it. Those really are the two big ones. And even GitHub Copilot, I believe, has started to let you bring a local host model for Llama CPP.
Oh, have they? That's nice.
Let me confirm that. I think there's a setting.
Let me ask you a question while you're kind of looking at that.
Sure.
What MCP servers do you find yourself getting use out of?
The documentation one, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Giving them more access to documentation is always it's all about context.
Yeah.
I mean, the more context and the more right context that you can give it, the better.
Yeah.
Especially with like the AWS MCP server for documentation is super beneficial.
I have that one
In
for
fact,
sure.
almost any third party that offers an MCP server around their documentation tends to be something that I will use more, just because then I can give it up-to-date context without
Yeah.
having to rely on a search.
And I do find that it actually, at least Copilot's agent, it will run into problems and be like, let me look at the documentation. So it's definitely using it.
Yeah, see, there's GitHub
Yeah.
Copilot, bring your own key, own Llama endpoint, which is basically Llama
Yeah.
CPP. And so, like, even this has started to recognize that people are going to want to run their own.
Yeah.
And so,
So just for clarity purposes, when you're running your own model, like, do you see very many people wanting to build their own model or fine tune their models for this type of work?
well, I mean, not like the general public, no.
Yeah.
Like, there's a huge community on Hugging Face and in the open source that
Sure.
are constantly doing it. And so,
But like those people are largely doing it for the purpose of advancing that community, right? Like,
yeah. And so, like, I would say, like, me as a developer, no. And even when I'm like looking for particular use cases, like,
Right.
you basically have access to everything in Hugging Face. So like I had a friend that wanted to do some basically ask some lawyer type questions, and it was sensitive stuff.
Yeah.
And she didn't feel like she could put it into, one of the big models. And so I introduced her to LM Studio, and then there was like hundreds of fine-tuned
Yeah.
law-based like Llama implementations and stuff of that nature. And so she was able to use that to kind of do it in a constrained environment where, it's just on her computer. So it's what it would be doing no matter what. And
I think that's actually a really good example, because I think if you think about like law, the models in general are going to have general understanding of law, but you're likely going to want it fine tuned for the state you're in, for the country you're in. And so like that, it makes sense. But like when you're writing code, Python code is Python code. Node code is node code. Really not a whole lot do you have to worry about.
Yeah, so there's like law LLMs, law LM13. And I mean, you can literally select based off of like what.
Yeah.
And it does, like, this tool has come a long way where you can select a pretty beefy one, but it still is going to maintain a pretty good amount, and it'll show you, it'll set it all up for you. And so like right now I'm downloading one of them, but it'll even configure it and all that good jazz, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But there's like all those like fine-tune use cases, but
It's definitely getting to where, like, and this is where, again, always what happens. It's getting to the point where you don't really have to understand a lot of this stuff and how to do all these things to use it, right? Like even locally, right? Because like when
Yep.
these things first came out, to run something locally, you had to get into the weeds a little bit, and they're making it pretty easy for you.
Interesting. They support MLX now. I didn't even know that.
What is MLX?
A different quantization, basically. So like this one's a Distill DeepSeek R1 version 0528, continued post-training process on the Qwen 3 8 billion base model.
Yep.
So it's combining the two. So it takes DeepSeek's chain of thought and basically layers it on top of Qwen 3 8 billion. And so once it's done downloading, we can load it up, and it has tool use and reasoning capabilities.
Nice.
And so like this is one of the biggest barriers of entry for people that were trying to do multi-agent, right? Because it would be super expensive. Now that we can start doing tool use in the open source space,
Yep.
you can prove out all kinds of things. In fact, my LinkedIn was literally being ran off of LM Studio for a while, where I had just a cron job on my computer that would kick it off every morning, and it would run it through 5 or 6 agents that would be looking at the news, doing editing, doing all kinds of stuff, and then finally posting it. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So it's basically loading up the model right now. You'll have to bear with me. They changed some of the
Yep.
some of the UI. Like you can tell it what your context length is. Like, I mean, you can get super involved. You can give it the system prompt.
Yeah.
There used to be like a whole bunch of, they changed the way that they do like their runtime. But it will automatically offload it into the metal.
Yep.
So it won't, you'll get the full benefit of the Apple Silicon.
Yep.
And so like, you can see it's like thinking.
It's thinking about hello.
It also, like, if you notice, it thought about how.
Yeah. Might be testing. Yep.
Yeah, and it was talking about the strawberry somewhere in there.
Yep. It said strawberry count was very short. Yep.
And so, like, yeah, I mean, if I were to suggest to folks that were, wanting to be more on the open source side of things, this is a definite good route. And I think Amazon is probably one of the best cloud providers when it comes to the open source space, just because they're well positioned from the Bedrock perspective. Because, like, yeah, you can run it locally and you can do your local stuff, and that's great for developers and whatnot. But you can also take these models and load them into Bedrock as custom models. A lot of the times they pick them up if they're popular enough. DeepSeek's already in Bedrock. And it's very reasonably priced when it's the open source model versus the, when you're paying the Anthropic pricing.
You're basically just paying the Bedrock charges at that point, which are really pretty small.
Yep.
I think we talked about this earlier, but I think maybe some future episode we'll try to load a model into Bedrock just to see what that's like. I've never actually done it, so be interesting just to see how that works. Even if it's one that exists, we can kind of take a look at it. There are some cost disadvantages to loading your own model. I don't think it can be like, so Bedrock in general is serverless, right? It's pay as you go. I think when you load your model, you're kind of into a provisioned route. Model failed generated tool call.
I gave it a JS code sandbox.
Yeah. But
I think it's broken. Well, there we go.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I mean, like
Yeah.
that's proof right there that you can do like the tool calls in the local environment.
Right.
And like I said, you can also now it's reachable at
At a local
local host.
Yeah. So now you can hit it from
And so like I can the hit it from local host. I don't have like what you can see. I just hit the get.
yeah. Yep.
But it would just be a normal post and whatnot, and it will run just like the same as if you had an endpoint, and if you were calling Bedrock or if you were calling OpenAI, OpenAI or Anthropic. So I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, it's definitely a nice tool to have when you're talking about AI and when you're starting to explore all these models, because it gives you that ability to really iterate and look at these before you spend a lot of money, because the stuff it can cost quite a bit.
Yeah, I think AI is definitely opening people's eyes to their account pricing costs. Like, oh, hey, I probably should be watching my billing.
Yeah. And there's crazy nuances to all of it. Like, just from an example perspective, I was writing an agent that was making tool calls, and part of its instructions was like, complete the task, don't stop until you completed the task, and the task required it to make multiple tool calls.
Yep.
And me being clever, I thought I would take out the context of the tool calls above it, like once it had completed. And
just because like that was
I was just trying to shrink the context window, right? To keep costs down. Well, that did not work. It kept calling the original tool call that it called in the first place, because it never thought it completed it. It was going to keep going until it had a full list of everything. And
this was the thing that was particularly funny about this. Like, if you did this locally or even like on a server somewhere, you just log in, kill the machine, whatever. It was running Lambda, and just those of you who don't know, once the Lambda is running, there's nothing you can do. Yeah, it's so, and I think we had that thing set to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was 10.
At least okay, I was gonna say
it was $200.
Yeah, at least it was up there. So yeah, I made a few tool calls. Yeah, watch that. Be careful.
But yeah, there's all those nuances to that stuff, and so if you can find the open source way of testing that stuff and doing some of that stuff, I highly suggest it, because it's definitely worthwhile, and you'll catch that stuff in moments where all it costs you is your time versus what's in your wallet.
Right. I think people are starting to see that a lot too, and you were talking a little bit, I think probably offline, but about like the Anthropic's Claude Code, and how you have to have their max to really be able to do anything. Well, it's $200, right, a month.
But they do have a $100 a month one.
Yeah, they have a $100 a month one, but like people are.
But that's still a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. But on like all of them, people are running out of tokens.
Yeah,
you're seeing a lot. Like this is the reality of these things aren't cheap, and the reality is, I don't think those guys are making money off those $100 and $200 things. They're still losing money.
No, OpenAI has come out and said that they don't even make anything close to what the actual pro users are using it for.
Yeah. So.
I think people, like, I highly suggest watching some of our earlier streams where we do function calls, because those function calls are just a loop, and that loop continually calls, and the context window is growing with each tool call.
Yep.
And so you can see how that can become very expensive very quickly.
Yep.
And so you have to really think about, how you set up those tools, what you allow it to do, and it's even like a whole new world of optimization in that regard, because it's like, do you do it one by one, like when you're iterating over something, or do you tell it to group it? Because like you can get it to group it. Like, in fact, we went through iterations where we would have it call the tool for each thing that it was recording. And then we were like, well, what if we told it to just call with a big list of all the things? And we ended up in between that, where it was like call with around 10 things in each tool call. And it's all
if I
about like
recall- I
optimizing
was
it.
gonna say, like, if I recall correctly, some of the issues were like it wasn't doing it as effectively when it got too big, right?
Yep.
So like it was the context of what it needed to know for each call started getting lost, and yeah, it is a new world. It's I think one of the things that developers are, I still am among them, challenge that I struggle with is that it is not like I can't predict the outcome.
Yeah.
And so there's the degree to where like we're still figuring out how to work in that world where things are unpredictable, but I still need to get a result. I need to be able to rely on something. How do I get there? So yeah, all very interesting. Cool. I think I honestly I have not downloaded LM Studio, so I'm gonna do that because I want to play around with it a little bit. I'm definitely getting more into using these tools and getting more value out of them. So I'm gonna check this stuff out myself and see what I can do with it. So
Yeah,
very cool.
highly suggest that one for sure. I mean, you can go lower and go llama.cpp
Yeah.
is like if you want to get a little bit lower where you're controlling how it's loading the model and some of the hardware pieces, but
I don't
for
think that I
for
would
most
do that
people, just having LM Studio
Yeah.
is going to be enough. And you can even set it to developer, and it gives you a little bit more.
Yeah. Kind of hints and tips.
Yeah,
and stuff.
like
Yeah.
it basically gives you more ability and stuff like that. And so there's definitely some cool things when it comes to that. But yeah, it definitely something that I would suggest for folks to use, especially if they're running into, you know, it. You can't let the biggest and best model become your hammer. Like
Right.
there's other models out there that
Yeah.
will probably service your need, and the smaller the context, the better results you're gonna have, and a lot of times that also warrants a smaller model.
Yep. Yeah, like sometimes something like a mini, some of those mini models out of 01 mini or whatever, like those are perfectly fine to do what you're trying to do. It's like don't run Sonnet 4 when you can get by with Opus 3, right? Like
Yeah.
let's use the cheaper ones when we can. Cool. Well, before we wrap up, just a little bit of a heads up for our next episode. We're going to actually have a guest on our show next time, which is the first time we've done that. So that'll be interesting. Those of you who know us, AJ Yon, who was our CEO at the last startup we were at, and also our boss at for a while at my last job where TJ currently is. And so he's going to join us next time. We're going to talk a little bit about GRC. He released a new book recently, and so he'll talk a little bit about that. But we'll dive in, actually do some like GRC like example stuff, and talk through that for a little while with AJ. So that'll be fun next 2 weeks from today.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We will catch you in 2 weeks. And later.